Alright guys, my name is Super Necomorphin, welcome back to another video. And let's be honest, I probably should have made a script for this, but Lord knows I'm too lazy to actually make a script for anything, so I'm just gonna wing it, alright? This is gonna be a video explaining kinda why the Scouter power levels are bad. And I'm not saying that all power levels are bad, that it's useless to try to measure someone's power. Let's get that cleared up right away. I've been making power level lists for all the 2 years I've been in this fandom. I am obsessive about it. It's definitely not useless to try to measure someone's power. It is possible. The problem is that the Scouter levels, the official power levels, do not match up with what you actually see in the series. And I'm going to be going into that today, why you shouldn't accept them, I guess. Why they really don't fit with the actual Dragon Ball series that you see on TV and that you read in the manga. They don't fit with the fights at all. And, by the way, if you're expecting this to be a video where I go after movie power levels and stuff like that, that's wrong. It's not going to be like that. Those are just such low-hanging fruit that it would probably make this video worse if I went after them. It would lower the credibility because it's just so obvious how bad they are. And the same goes for any power level before Z. These are going to be only power levels in the Frieza arc. Only power levels in the Frieza arc, guys. There are just a lot of little examples of things that don't really make any sense about the power level system, and on their own they're not that bad, but if you put them all together, it pretty much just destroys the whole list. Take the battle with Raditz, for example. As a lot of people know, during the fight with Raditz, Raditz's power level was 1200, Gohan's power level was 1307, I believe, when he was enraged. Yeah, 1307, and Piccolo's Makonko Suppose were 1330 and 1480, respectively. Gohan, if you watch the fight with Raditz, or if you read the fight with Raditz, Gohan had a pretty substantial advantage over Raditz, that's pretty obvious. He hit Raditz one time, and Raditz just almost fell over, his armor cracked, and it made this big derp face too. And this is a very small advantage. This is only a 9% advantage, just use the trusty old calculator there. So only a 9% advantage during this fight is enough to have a serious advantage over the opponent. And again, if we go to Vegeta vs Zarbon, say, on Namek, and keep in mind that I am talking about base Zarbon here, not transformed Zarbon. Base Zarbon's official power level is 23,000. I know that that is debated among a lot of people who use the Scouter levels, but we are only looking at official power levels today to point out how bad the system is. So I have to use the official power level, that's 23,000. And Vegeta was only at 24,000, and he had a pretty substantial advantage over Zarbon in the fight. And whether the advantage is more or less than the advantage Gohan had over Raditz is debatable, since Gohan didn't really fight Raditz for very long. But just simple math tells you that Vegeta had less than a 5% advantage. That's even less than Gohan and Raditz, and he was still dominating that fight. And if you go a step further and look at Vegeta vs Dodoria, just off the top of my head I would guess that the numerical advantage between Dodoria's 22k and Vegeta's 24k is similar to the numerical advantage between Raditz's 1200 and Gohan's 1307. Around 8 or 9%, I'd guess. I'm not even using the calculator for this, but I'm just guessing that they're similar. But in any case, both are less than 10%. So then let's go to Yamcha versus a Cyberman. Yamcha's power level, officially, is 1480 during that fight against the Cyberman's 1200. This is not a power level that's disputed very often. And that is more than a 10% advantage. That is a 20% advantage. More than 20% even. And yet, Yamcha's advantage over the Cyberman really wasn't that big when you actually watch it and don't look at power levels. It really wasn't that big. Yamcha, by these standards, Yamcha should certainly be one-shotting a Cyberman. If the advantage between Vegeta and Dodoria was less than 10%, and if the advantage between Yamcha and the Cyberman is more than 20%, Yamcha should be one-shotting, or at the very least have a massive advantage over the Cyberman. Because when you really think about it, that is enough to have that sort of advantage twice over. Because if you multiply a 10% boost times a 10% boost, that is a 21% boost. And Yamcha had a 23% advantage, so he should be curb stomping this guy twice over. And that's not what happened. Because even if you don't take the self-destruction into account, Yamcha didn't seem to have a gigantic advantage over the Cyberman. I've seen people who would say that Yamcha was equal to the Cyberman. I've seen people say that. And you have to keep in mind as well that even without all these numbers, the more obvious flaw is that Yamcha's power level is supposedly higher than the Makonkosa Po that killed Raditz. Raditz claimed that the Makonkosa Po that had a power level of 1330, the first Makonkosa Po, could have killed him if he'd let it hit, and the Makonkosa Po that actually did kill him had a power level of 1440, both of which are less than Yamcha's power level. Now, some people have argued that the Makonkosa Po is a piercing attack, which is why I haven't talked about it until now. That since it's a piercing attack, it would be easier to kill someone with it, so that's invalid. But at the same time, when you take that with the numerical advantage things I've just said, then, yeah, that is pretty bad. And at the same time, we see Goku is able to defend against Ginyu when Ginyu uses his full power. That is a 1/3 advantage that Ginyu has over Goku. And that's even bigger than these advantages. That's enough to have a major advantage 3 times over based on Gohan versus Raditz or Vegeta versus Dodoria. And there are other examples like this, but the fact is that they're there, and there are several of them, and the power levels really seem to contradict each other here. Again, I think one of the worst examples is Kaioken x 3 versus Vegeta compared to Zenkai Vegeta versus Kui. Kaioken x 3 Goku had a power level of 2400, Vegeta had a power level of 1800. On Namek after his first Zenkai, Vegeta had a power level of 24,000, not 100, they're thousands. Kui had a power level of 18,000. So these are the exact same gaps with the exact same power levels. In fact, Goku's power level is actually more than 24,000 because his base power is over 8,000. His power level could be over 25 or even over 26,000 for all we know. And yet, Goku is able to deal several punches to Vegeta, and while Vegeta is hurt, he's definitely still alive. Vegeta deals one punch to Kui and it goes into his stomach. And then he kills him by pointing his finger at him too hard. If you just look at those fights without looking at the official power levels, that is obviously a much wider gap that you see between Vegeta and Kui than between Kaioken x 3, Goku, and Vegeta. And yet by official power levels, the gap is smaller. That doesn't make any sense. And you might think I'm nitpicking here with all these advantages and all this math, but I'm not. And that is the worst part of this system. The worst part of this system is that it's gotten people believing that it is natural for the same advantage to mean a different thing depending on the fight. That is like if I went to the gym one day, lifted 80% of my maximum weight and it was light as a feather, then I went to the gym the next day, lifted 80% of my maximum weight, and I could barely lift it. That doesn't make any sense, but it's the same thing that's going on here, and it's the same thing that people think makes sense, that people don't question. And again, I've tried mostly to stick to power levels that most people accept. The only power levels I've used that most people don't accept are Dodoria and Zarbon's base power levels. I could go on at length about things like 3rd Zenkai Vegeta having half the power of First Form Frieza, or things like that. But the worst part, I think, is one of the golden power levels of the series, one of the most, I guess, important or iconic. Goku versus Final Form Frieza. Now, if you look at 50% Frieza, his power level is 60 million. If you look at Kaioken times 20 Goku, his power level is also 60 million. Both of these are according to the Daizenshu. And I know that some power levels in the Daizenshu are not used by everyone, but these are power levels that definitely are in my experience. Almost everyone uses these power levels. Now, when Goku fired his Kamehameha at 50% Frieza, Frieza stood there and tanked it with one hand. He just held out his hand and he came away with nothing but a singed palm. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you put all your power into an attack against someone of equal level, a singed palm should not be what happens. The opponent should be seriously injured. That's my experience with this series. And I admit that the advantage is not enormous between the two, not truly enormous, because Goku was able to catch Frieza off guard with some punches, but you cannot say that those two are equal. There's also a bad difference between Super Saiyan Goku and 100% Frieza, because in that battle, Goku officially has a 25% advantage over Frieza. And I know the fight isn't as close in the manga as it is in the anime, but even so, Goku's advantage over Frieza cannot be that big if you look at the advantages between, say, Vegeta and Dodoria and Gohan and Raditz. The advantage did not seem that big. I mean, certainly Frieza definitely wasn't equal to Goku once he started losing power, but I kind of assumed that the 100% power was referring to Frieza before he started losing stamina. Therefore, that means that Goku was actually significantly stronger. He had two major advantages stacked on top of each other over Frieza. And yet it didn't look that way in the manga. Frieza was even able to match Goku's power level on occasion. In the anime, the fight's even closer. And I feel that in the anime, it wouldn't be unreasonable to put Frieza equal to Goku. That's really what I see. And even in the manga, Frieza isn't that far below Goku. So, really, that's just a big summary of why I don't use official power levels. I'm going to wrap up this video now, but that's why I don't use official power levels in my list. This video is going to be replacing that introduction I made, because that introduction was kind of unclear, kind of bad. So I'm going to be replacing that with this video, because I think this gives a better picture of why I don't use official power levels. I don't use it because I want to make a list that I feel represents every part of the series. And I don't think power levels do that. And I hope that after watching this video, maybe you'll question some of the power levels too. And this has been Super Nekomojin. Thank you all for watching. I'm going to see you all next time.